The IBJJF is the NCAA of Jiu Jitsu.
It's fucking ridiculous.
And I am very proud of that analogy. You know I love a good analogy, and I'm proud of that one.
That was like a Division II analogy.
That was a blue belt analogy. This is Justin Lesko, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt and former pro MMA fighter.
And I'm Mike Callahan, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt and a law enforcement officer.
Welcome to That Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. So should we talk first about who has the best jiu-jitsu in the world, or should we talk first about Dan Hardy fighting Herb Dean on Saturday?
Dan Hardy's a fucking douchebag, but
you know what? Before you dive down to the I hate Dan Hardy level, I actually like Dan Hardy in everything up until this past Saturday.
He's a douchebag for doing that, and he should have never got a title shot at George St. Pierre about 8-9 years ago.
I agree.
Anyway,
I agree.
So I feel like I should get some credit for essentially drawing out how the fight between Verdum and Gustafsson was going to play out.
My brother Jeff had we always place bets like on the fights, like parlays or random prop bets, like just to make it more exciting. So he had placed a parlay where I don't remember the exact rounds, but it was like Gustafsson had to win by knockout, Shogun had to win by knockout, and Till had to win by knockout. And he picked the rounds for all three of them. And it was like a $10 bet, but it would have paid him $20K if he had won. And obviously the first fight in order was the Gustafsson fight. And as soon as Verdum took him down, I was like, oh, we're not getting $20K. You lost. Sorry. Like, it's over. As soon as he had the back, it was done. It was beautiful.
It was crazy. Like when he first got in on Gustafsson's legs and Gustafsson was throwing those elbows, I'm like, that's going to be fucking problems, because we talked about it last week. You know, John Jones had problems taking down Gustafsson, and so did Daniel Cormier. And I actually think that he took down John Jones in their first fight. Yeah. So I thought that it was going to be difficult for Verdum to get him to the ground, but like it was crazy. Like when he got him, you know, he had like that belly to back, and then he got him on the ground, and Gustafsson was like fell weird and then posted up on all fours, and then as soon as he got his back, like that transition to that arm bar. Yeah,
it's what we call the BJ Penn arm bar.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was
he as soon as he transitioned to that armbar and he had that like spider web position, there was nothing anybody in the world was going to do, let alone Alexander Gustafsson. And it's not a knock on Gustafsson, it's just Verdum is that good. And if you let Verdum get on your back, like you let Verdum get on your back in the first round when you're not slippery, when you're full of friction and contact, he's just going to finish. There's no ifs or buts about it, and Gus tapped right away because obviously he knew, there was nothing to get out of that.
He wasn't going to lose his arm.
So that brings us to the main question of the day: does Verdum have the best jiu-jitsu in MMA? And if he doesn't, who does?
He's definitely up there in all of MMA.
Well, you can break this question down into two parts. You can look at it as who's got the best jiu-jitsu right now in MMA, who's got the best jiu-jitsu all time in MMA, and I guess you could go in a third. It's kind of the same, but who's got the best jiu-jitsu in the UFC? But I mean,
yeah, I think it's easy. I think Damian Maia.
Yeah, he's on my short list as well.
Damian Maia, Kron Gracie, Fabricio Verdum. They're probably the top three in the UFC.
What about Jacare Souza?
Is he? Yeah. Okay. And then Mackenzie Dern.
I'm going through my list and I'm like, I feel like there's somebody I'm forgetting. Who am I forgetting? And then it was like an hour later, a light bulb went off. Like, you're not really thinking about something. It just like pops in your head. It's like, oh yeah, Mackenzie Dern. Yeah. Mackenzie Dern is a fucking phenom.
But like you have guys like Galvo fought MMA.
Yes, he did.
Gary Tonen's fighting in MMA.
I think this is a debate that gets much harder as the time goes on. As more and more people come into
think
the
about
sport.
it, like Robert Drysdale fought MMA. Lovato fights MMA. Like these guys are fucking savages on the ground. Like you have people who have one or two fights. Like Dylan Dennis's jiu-jitsu is really, really good, and it's on he's one of the higher level jiu-jitsu practitioners in MMA, but he's fighting in Bellator, and he's really not that good of an MMA fighter.
If you look at who's got great jiu-jitsu and MMA accomplishments, I think you have to add BJ Penn to the list, and that's not just because I'm a BJ Penn fanboy.
So BJ Penn was the first American to win the World Championships, and I think since then there's only 5 of them. It's him, Lovato, Robert Drysdale, Mikey Musumeci, and then Shane Hill Taylor from Team Lloyd Irvin.
Yep.
I mean, if you're talking about like world champions, like now Buchecha is getting into it. Like he's obviously, at the top of that list now. When Gordon Ryan's talked for, years about getting into it, he would obviously be the best jiu-jitsu practitioner.
I think right now, Damian Maia is the best who's never won a UFC World Championship. I think BJ is the best who has won a UFC World Championship. Verdum is up there just because of he has been a world champion in the UFC, and he's obviously, got amazing jiu-jitsu. And then for the rest of the people that we've listed, I think you can kind of put them in any order, and I wouldn't fight you too hard on it.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this and there's someone that we've missed, please send us a message or comment on this video if you're watching the YouTube and let us know why we're wrong. But I think it's got to be BJ as number 1, and slightly biased, but BJ.
Yeah, I think you are biased because, I mean, he won a world championship, but, like, he wasn't competing regularly after he started MMA. Like, Damian Maia, Jacare, I would say BJ in terms of pure jiu-jitsu is probably behind Damian Maia and Fabricio Verdum and Jacare.
Yeah.
And Mackenzie Dern, probably.
I don't know about behind Mackenzie Dern, but...
What? We're talking about strictly jiu-jitsu chops.
Yeah.
Fucking Mackenzie Dern beat Gabby Garcia.
I also do wish that BJ would have kept competing in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Because he won the world championships and went right to the UFC and then never really competed in jiu-jitsu again. So
he had a big falling out with Ralph Gracie.
Yes,
that's who he came up under. So that kind of
he got his black belt from DD Pedinaris at Nova and Yao. I think he got his brown belt and his black belt there, and then he reconciled with Half. But if you watch my BJ Penn video, he basically was too good on the West Coast in the United States, and like it was reported that Half wouldn't let him go back to Brazil to keep competing, and he basically was just like, I'm BJ, I'm gonna BJ, and just bounced, and that was their whole thing. But
I think he was fine with that, but then when he fucking fought Henzo,
that was like
those guys.
Yeah.
He took the heat for that. But yeah, he's a savage. BJ's a savage.
Yeah.
He is one of the top pound for pound fighters of all time. He is a classic example of people extending their careers
hanging on
beyond
too long.
The point where they should.
Just hanging on too long.
He probably should have retired after that second loss to Frankie. But if you look at his record and you look at the past, 8 or 9 years, and even if you keep them in the discussion, he is an absolute fucking savage and one of the all-time greats.
And that's why I would love to see him compete more in jiu-jitsu tournaments, do super fights like. You were a world champion. You were the first American to win the world championship.
He actually is doing super fights. He's doing super fights in parking lots of local watering holes in Hilo, Hawaii.
I thought you were about to drop breaking news, like your inside connection with Seth Daniels. He's got BJ coming to Texas for a fight to win.
No, I saw he's gotten into 2 fights. He beat the fuck out of some bouncer in a parking lot.
Yeah, and he also got dropped the fuck down by a bouncer in a parking lot.
But then he went and he fought that guy again. It's like, if you're a bouncer, like even if you're 300 pounds, it's like, buddy, if there's 1,000 people in a room, pick a fight with 999 other people. Like,
pick a fight with someone who doesn't have cauliflower ear. I mean, just the whole jumping off of this conversation was the Verdum fight this weekend. The other fight that I really wanted to talk about was the Till Whitaker fight. I I thought it was a good fight. I thought that it was very technical back and forth. I thought Till won the fight, but I'm not up in arms. Like I can see it scored the other way as well. What were your thoughts?
So I always like to look at the judges' scorecard. So it was 48-47 across the board, but the one judge, even if Till did win that last round on the judges' scorecard, and he didn't have a chance going in that fifth round on that scorecard. Those fucking oblique kicks.
Yeah, like tore up Darren Till's knee. He said it in the post fight in the press conference.
Like they're just like something, and I agree with them. They serve. I understand they serve a legitimate purpose, and they help you establish range, and they keep your opponent on their toes, and you want to stop these guys from rushing in. But fuck, man, like you're talking one wrong kick that ends somebody's fucking career. These commissions that are regulating these fights really need to take a hard look at this shit. So you're allowed to do that, but you're not allowed to do 12-6 elbows. Like, get the fuck out of here.
It seems to be there's no rhyme or reason sometimes to these rule sets. I agree, and what makes those oblique kicks even more dangerous is it's not really something that you can train in sparring. So if you're coming in to throw that, you're throwing that against a guy who you can't really train that in sparring because there's no real safe way to do it. So it's a dangerous technique on its own, but it's also made more dangerous by the fact that you're throwing it against a guy who's probably not prepared for it. But
it was a close fight. It was probably, to the casual observer, wasn't the most entertaining fight. I thought it was a good fight. Till is tough as nails, and Whitaker is...
Yeah, Whitaker,
he's a fucking champion. He's a former champion for a reason.
We said it on the last episode that I wanted both guys to win. Whoever won, I'd be happy for, and whoever lost, I'd be down for. I'm happy for Rob that he won. Bummed for Till that he lost. I'm glad to see that the loss to Adesanya is not going to keep Whitaker. Like, sometimes when champions lose that first fight back after losing their belt, it can really show you what they really have.
It's like the Chuck Liddell effect.
Yeah, and you don't want to go out there and get starched again or get embarrassed, and then you're just, I guess that's a career, you know what I mean? I do think Till will be a champion. He's 27 years old. He's going to keep fighting the best guys there are, and if he can put some wins together, I still think he has star potential.
Just in terms of like his physique, he still has growing to do. Yep. Like, he's still growing into that 185-pound weight class. You know what I mean? So,
and this is his second fight in that weight class against the guy who just had the belt. Yeah, you fought Gastelum and then you fought Whitaker back to back in a new weight class. Like, that's impressive. I don't know who he fights next. I think it's going to be a ways away with the knee injury, but I'm sure it'll still be someone with a name, and I still think he's talented. But the Till Whitaker fight is, I mentioned it earlier, one of the other reasons that I'm really annoyed with Dan Hardy. And I like Dan Hardy on commentary. I like Paul Felder on commentary, and those were the two guys who were doing the commentary this weekend. And it seemed to me like Till dropped Whitaker in the first round. Whitaker dropped Till in the second round. And in the third round, Whitaker started off winning that round. And they got this narrative in their head of Whitaker is overcoming, getting dropped, and he's taking control of the fight. And they couldn't shake that narrative no matter what happened. So they were projecting the story they wanted to project onto the fight. There was a time in the fourth round where Till landed like 4 or 5 punch combo, and they're talking about Whitaker shooting for a failed single leg. And talking about how that means Whitaker's winning the fight because he's pressuring, trying to use his wrestling. Like, that's not what's happening. That's just what you guys want to happen for the narrative of the fight. I was annoyed.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, and I don't know why, but I think that their approach to this commentating and everything else has changed in these empty arenas.
You're right.
And I don't know the reasoning behind it. Maybe it's because they know that everyone can fucking hear him in there. Like during the Poirier-Hooker fight, Hooker and Poirier were fucking talking in the ring about what Bisping was saying.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know what it is, but like those fucking judges shouldn't be at ringside. When there's no, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they can hear these fucking guys talking, they shouldn't be at ringside.
Yeah.
Because it's subconscious. Like you're hearing this shit and subconsciously it's affecting your thought process. It can't not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's a double negative, but again, we're articulate here.
We are.
It can't.
We're educated.
There's no reason there's no way it doesn't somehow.
No, because if
affect.
you're,
I shouldn't say no way, but I think it does. You know,
if you're watching the fight and one guy is landing punches and the other guy defensively shoots for a single leg and does not complete it, but the commentators are hooting and hollering about the failed single leg, that might gloss over the punches that were landed. It's hard to ignore someone hyping somebody else up in spite of what's actually happening. And again, like I understand it's a tough job. I don't think I could be a commentator because I don't think that I could be super objective without trying to put a narrative in there. And I don't fault them for that, but I was really annoyed that they were making it seem like those judges' scorecards were going to be 50-44 because Till got 10-8'd one round. And it was annoying as a viewer to watch. The other reason I was annoyed with Dan Hardy was not because of commentary, but because he starts climbing over his desk to yell at Herb Dean. If you haven't seen the video, there was a video circulated of Dan Hardy yelling at Herb Dean and Herb Dean responding in kind to Dan Hardy. Dan Hardy was pissed because in the Trinaldo fight, he felt that Herb Dean stopped it too late and was voicing that opinion. I think that's not really your job at that time, Dan Hardy.
Don't be a fucking douchebag.
He was
I understand. I understand what you're doing. I do. Hold on. I shouldn't say that. I understand the way that you explained it, that you're concerned for fighter safety and everything. But Herb Dean stopped the fight later than I would have stopped the fight, but
so
who the fuck are you to jump over the top of the cage and start fucking talking to Herb Dean like that? Like, they shouldn't let him commentate anymore.
Well, they said the UFC is like looking into it, but Herb Dean responded and said, it's dangerous to have people, especially in a venue where there's no crowd noise to drown it out. Having people yelling, stop the fight, stop the fight. The problem is that there actually are people cage side who have the authority to stop the fight by yelling that, including the coaches or members of the athletic commission that can actually, Herb Dean would listen to that advice. So that's confusing for the referee if you as commentator start yelling it. But also, the guy's on his back. Herb Dean is tracking where he's looking. The guy's still looking up at Trinaldo. He's got his arms between him. He's raised legs like he's going to play guard. Like he's still aware. He's still alert. Things that you can't see if you're sitting at a commentary table. So maybe it was a late stoppage and maybe we all would have stopped it a bit sooner. But I think Herb Dean is more qualified than you doing commentary to determine whether or not it should be stopped or not. And what are you going to accomplish by getting into a screaming match with a referee?
Yeah, he just wants to put his face out there. It was a fucking total douche move. It was a douchebag move.
Yeah. And again, I like Dan Hardy. I'm a Dan Hardy fan. I don't think he's an awful dude. I like him on commentary, but this was bad form.
Yeah, it was a douchebag move. It was just a way to. It was his look at me moment. If he disagreed with it, there's ways to use the platform that he's on to talk about it later. But you don't handle it like that, like a fucking jerk off.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. I understand the response to this is going to be all late stoppages are egregious, but I didn't think that this was so egregious that it warranted the behavior that he put on display there, that Dan Hardy put on display. I don't think with this late stoppage was so terrible.
It wasn't worse than the Aldo stoppage against Peter Yan.
But like this fucking guy, man, it was just a total douche move. Yeah. I've said douche about 500 times tonight, but it was a total douchebag move.
It's okay. They weren't aimed at me, so I'm gonna let it slide.
If we're in that cage, and we're doing like a referee tandem thing, if you and I are Herb Dean and Dan Hardy jumps over that cage and starts screaming at us, he better have his fucking lunch packed because he's in for a long day.
He's got problems.
Fucking pack a lunch.
Well, we're talking MMA. We mentioned it earlier, but Buchecha is moving over, leaving competitive jiu-jitsu behind to focus on MMA. Signed with...
Leaving gi jiu-jitsu behind.
Sorry,
right?
yeah.
Is that what you said? He's still going to compete no gi.
Yeah.
He's the best. I mean, he's the best. I know Hodger has competed in MMA and everything, but Buchecha, I was looking at the other day. He's got 12 gold medals from the World Championships.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of gold medals.
Hodger beat him head-to-head a couple years ago, which it was one of the most shocking fucking things I've ever seen. If you are a fan of jiu-jitsu, go watch that match because Hodger hadn't competed in years. And Buchecha was at the top of the sport, and Hodger came out, and it was not close. It was probably like a 7-minute match, or no, it was longer than that. I think it was a 10-minute match, but like 7 minutes into the match, he took him down, he took his back, and he choked him out, and it was fucking impressive.
Yeah. Even Buchecha's going to have a bad day, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, that does nothing to discredit or dispute his accolades, the Buchecha's accolades, and he is a monster of a man.
Yes, he is.
If Buchecha jumped over the cage to fight you and I, he wouldn't even need to pack a lunch. I would have packed his lunch for him, and I would have set out like a nice like picnic setting for him to come in and eat for after he kills us.
And you'd write a nice note in there, like a mom
like enjoy
school, off to school.
Buchecha, enjoy your day, and I would cut his peanut butter and jelly sandwich in a heart, in the shape of a heart.
Is there anybody else from the highest levels of jiu-jitsu that you A, think should, and B, think could go over to MMA?
Gordon Ryan.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Ryan. We talk about Gordon Ryan every episode. We should move past Gordon Ryan. Who's your second option?
I mean, like JT Torres talked about it years ago. But I mean, he's 30 years old now, so I don't really know if he's going to do it.
But there could be something to be said for starting an MMA career a little bit, like, quote unquote, later in life, athletically later in life.
I don't think that he's going that route. He just opened up that essential jiu-jitsu. Not just a couple of years ago, he opened that up in New York. I think he's settled in on the jiu-jitsu scene, and this is, what the fuck do I know? That's what it seems.
That's just your hunch. Yeah, I think there's like a weird thing with jiu-jitsu where the guys at the top will make enough money to support themselves, so probably don't need to go fight in MMA. And then the guys below that maybe would go to MMA just for the payday, I don't think I'd be as excited about. So I think that puts Buchecha in a really weird spot where maybe he's a guy who has nothing left to prove in jiu-jitsu and wants more money in MMA. I don't know the motivation behind him switching over, but it's sort of weird how you can be amazing at one sport and not really get a ton of money just from competing in jiu-jitsu. But if you go to MMA, all the jiu-jitsu nerds like us are going to be super pumped for it.
We also forgot about Ryan Hall when we were talking earlier.
I know, because poor Ryan Hall, nobody wants to fight Ryan. See, this is what's going to happen is we talked about that earlier, and then within 1 hour of uploading this to YouTube, there's going to be comments and messages coming in saying, you forgot about. I'm okay with that. I don't get mad if you tell us that we missed somebody, because that just gives me an excuse to go watch all their fights. And Ryan Hall is one of my favorite guys to steal techniques from, so thanks for
trying to get him on the show.
I tried.
What it's worth, we tried to get him on the show.
Do your thing, Internet. Get him on here. If you are looking to compete in jiu-jitsu, the IBJJF just announced that they're doing the tournament in Austin on September 19th of this year. They had suspended all tournaments for 2020, but they're coming back in Austin in September. That's cool.
Yeah.
You have to wear masks inside at all times until you get on the mat to then compete and sweat on somebody else.
Yeah. It's amazing how you had these, like, they're in it to make money.
Yeah.
And then you have people like Fight to Win and Third Coast Grappling that are like the exact opposites. Like, they're in it for jiu-jitsu. They're in it to put on shows. They're in it to give fighters a platform to fight on. So it's just...
Are you saying it's a bad thing that the IBJJF is coming back?
No, but I just think they're motivated to make, like, they want to make money. Like, that's, you know, I don't think Seth Daniels is out there like, oh, I need to, you know, I'm doing this strictly to make money, you know?
Yeah.
But it's no secret that the IBJJF is money driven. Like, they are. And it's not about paying the fighters money. It's about collecting money from the fighters and bringing it all in.
The IBJJF is the NCAA of jiu-jitsu.
It's fucking ridiculous.
And I am very proud of that analogy. You know I love a good analogy, and I'm proud of that one.
It was okay.
Oh,
That was like a Division II analogy.
That was a blue belt analogy. When we were talking about the matches for who's number one last week, I was actually thinking that, like, I guess I had my dates wrong, and I was thinking that it was like 2 or 3 weeks away, but that's this Friday on FloGrappling.
It's going to be huge.
It is.
Huge. It's going to be huge. Okay, so match I'm most excited for is Gary Tonin versus...
I like this feature. Match I'm most excited for. You might have stumbled on gold here.
Dante Leon versus Gary Tonin. Dante, like, stormed out of the gates at ADCC, and nobody really, I think, expected him to do as well as he did, but he ended up making it to that bronze medal match against Gary that Gary ended up winning. But you know, he's a savage. He's strong as an ox. He seems like he has, like, an unlimited gas tank, and, you know, when you pair that with Gary Tonin, who's the most exciting grappler in the world, it makes for a really, really good fight.
Yeah, it's not the match I'm most excited for. My official prediction for that match is I think that Gary is going to win it. I would not be surprised if it goes the other way, but official prediction is Gary.
Yeah, same.
The match I'm most excited for is the Craig Jones versus Hulk match, because I sort of talked about it last week, but I really think, and I'll probably be wrong, but I really think it's going to be a lot of Hulk trying to smash pass and Craig trying to get underneath through the legs. I think Craig will win it. I think it'll be a fun, stylistic battle, but official prediction for that will be Craig to win.
I think Hulk's going to win. He beat Leandro Lowe last weekend. It was in the gi, but
yeah,
I think Hulk's going to win by decision. I don't think he's going to sub him. But it'll be a good fight. It won't be as exciting as the Gary Tonin match, but it'll be a good fight. And I think that Gordon Ryan is going to just Gordon Ryan Ronaldo Jr.
I know, like,
does that make sense? Is that
yeah?
Can we coin that term? Like, he's just going to Gordon Ryan him.
Like, you want a Gordon Ryan Dan Hardy right now?
I don't know if I'm capable of Gordon Ryaning Dan Hardy. I don't know.
Dan Hardy hasn't fought in a while.
Who wins in a grappling match, me or Dan Hardy?
I think for the sake of the legitimacy of our show, I should say you.
I think I can beat Dan Hardy in a grappling match.
In a pure grappling match,
yeah.
I think so. I think so. I'm confident in your ability there. If it's a ground and pound match, I think.
Well, it's not a grappling match then. That's a fucking fight, which he used to get paid a lot of money to do.
Yeah, I think you could beat Dan Hardy.
And I think that if he shows up and it turns into a gunfight and he's got a gun, he's going to win that too. Like, what the fuck?
All right. All right, you're right.
Stevie's stipulation changer over here.
You're right. I see. The problem is when I have to start giving you credit, I need to build in ways that I can take some of it away from you. But you're right. I think you can beat Dan Hardy in a grappling match. I think you could beat him. I think I could sub him.
Okay.
You see what I did there?
I saw what you did there. And if you could see my face, you could see
The Gordon Ryan match, I think 99% of me wants to say that, yeah, Gordon Ryan's just going to do Gordon Ryan things, but I would like to see like a nice breakout performance. You know, here I come on the black belt stage, but I don't think it'll happen. I think Gordon Ryan's going to win.
Happen. Yeah. Gordon Ryan, Gary Tonin, and the Hulk. You heard it here first.
Gordon Ryan, Craig Jones, and Gary Tonin.
I really like Dante Leone, though.
I do too. You know, I think that's the closest match for me. That's the one that I'm like, that could go either way. But I still think Gary takes it.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Don't forget that you can watch the video version of any of our episodes on YouTube. You just have to go to YouTube and search for That Jiu Jitsu Podcast. If you want to follow the podcast on Instagram, you can do it at that_jiu-jitsu_podcast. If you want to follow me directly, you can find me at m_Callahan106.
If you want to follow me directly, you can find me at Justin Lesko. And we're still doing our free t-shirt giveaway for anyone who signs up to follow us on Patreon. There's a lot of different tiers with a lot of different bonus content. So check it out. It's patreon.com/thatjujitsupodcast. Say thank you one more time.
Thank you one more time. Dan Hardy, holla at you, boy.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.